It was New Year's Eve, the night that was supposed to be about fireworks, champagne, and family laughter. But for me, that night turned into the moment my entire world shattered. I still remember the sound of the clock striking 12, the clinking of glasses, and then my Uncle Sam's voice cutting through the noise. "So, Ethan," he said with a sly grin, "how's your $2.5 million trust fund doing?" The room went silent. My dad's face froze. My mom's glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the marble floor. Everyone stared at me, and I just stood there confused. "Trust fund," I repeated, almost whispering. My uncle laughed awkwardly, realizing he had said something he shouldn't have. He tried to change the subject, but it was too late. In that moment, I saw fear in my parents' eyes. Not anger, not surprise. Fear. And that's when I knew something was very, very wrong. Little did I know that single question would lead me to uncover years of lies, betrayal, and a truth my parents had buried deep beneath layers of family love. Growing up, I thought my family was perfect. We lived in a beautiful house in the suburbs. Dad was a successful financial consultant, and Mom was always the loving homemaker, always smiling, always calm. Money was never a problem. I went to private school, had the latest gadgets, vacations, everything. But after that night, something in me changed. I started replaying every memory, every moment when my parents avoided certain questions, every time they said, "Don't worry about money, Ethan." And then I realized I didn't even know what my dad really did at work. He said he managed clients, but never talked about them. A week after New Year's, I confronted my mom. "Mom, Uncle Sam mentioned a trust fund. What was he talking about?" Her hands froze on the dish she was washing. She turned, her face pale. "Oh, honey, he was just joking. You know your uncle." But her eyes said something else. They screamed fear. That night, when everyone was asleep, I sneaked into Dad's office. Inside a locked drawer, I found a file, labeled Ethan Trust Account. My heart stopped. I opened it, and there it was. My name, a bank statement, and a number I could barely process. 2,173,580.27. I wasn't supposed to know about it, and yet, there it was. The next morning, I waited for Dad to leave for work. Mom was still home, pretending nothing had happened. I dropped the file on the breakfast table. She froze mid-bite, eyes wide open. "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" I asked softly. She stayed silent for a long moment, then finally whispered, "Because it wasn't supposed to be yours." "Not yet." Her words hit me like a storm. "What do you mean, not yet?" She looked down. "Your grandfather left it for you, but under conditions. You were supposed to get it when you turned 30. If you stayed away from Uncle Sam." That made no sense. Uncle Sam had always been the fun uncle, loud, generous, always bringing gifts. Why would Grandpa write something like that? Mom continued, her voice shaking. "Your grandfather and your uncle had a huge fallout before he died. Your uncle was accused of forging signatures and taking money from the family estate." I felt dizzy. So, why did Dad hide this from me? She looked toward the door, her eyes filling with tears. "Because he didn't want you to know the truth, that your uncle wasn't the only one involved." I stepped back. "What are you saying?" Her lips trembled. "Your father and your uncle worked together. They moved money from your grandfather's accounts years ago. After your grandfather died, your dad was supposed to return your share, but he never did." I couldn't breathe. The man I looked up to my whole life then had stolen my inheritance. That evening, I confronted my dad. He was sitting in his office, typing away like nothing had happened. I held up the file. "Want to explain this?" He looked at it, sighed deeply, and said, "So you found it. No denial, no surprise, just calm acceptance, like he'd been waiting for this moment." "Why, Dad?" I asked. "Why would you take something that wasn't yours?" He leaned back and said coldly, "Because I earned it. Your grandfather never believed in me. He always compared me to Sam, called me the less successful son. When I finally managed his accounts, I took what I deserved. I stood there in shock. Deserved? That was my future. my education, my life. He smiled bitterly. You have no idea what I've done for this family. Everything you have, every comfort, came from that money. You should be thanking me. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I said, you betrayed not just Grandpa, but me. He looked away, eyes cold. You'll understand when you're older. But I didn't want to understand. I wanted justice. That night I made a decision. If he could manipulate money, I could manipulate truth. He taught me how to hide things. Now I'd use his own skills against him. I spent weeks studying every document in his office. He had offshore accounts, fake client names, secret transactions, but he made one mistake. He used the same password across multiple files. I tracked every transfer. I printed statements. I built a file thick enough to expose everything. Then I called Uncle Sam. He was shocked when I told him what I'd found. You mean to say, your father still has your trust fund? Yes, I replied, and I want to make it right. We met secretly, the same man I was told never to trust. For once our goals aligned. He gave me the name of a financial investigator who worked with the authorities. Within weeks, evidence piled up. My father's consulting business was nothing more than a shell. He was moving money through clients to hide what he'd taken. Finally, the day came. The investigator confronted my dad during a routine audit. The look on his face when he realized what was happening, priceless. He tried to call me that night. I didn't answer. For the first time in years, I felt powerful, not because of the money, but because I finally had control over the truth. A month later, my dad's company went under investigation. Clients withdrew. Banks froze accounts. Mom begged me to stop, but it was too late. The system had already caught him. He came home one night, exhausted and broken. Ethan, he said, you don't understand what you've done. You've destroyed our family. I looked him in the eye and replied, no, Dad. You destroyed it the day you chose greed over honesty. He didn't speak after that. He just sat there staring at the floor, a man who had lost everything, not because someone betrayed him, but because his own lies finally betrayed him. Within weeks, he resigned from his company. The house was sold to cover debts. Mom moved in with her sister. And me? I took the trust fund back. Legally this time. Not to spend it, but to rebuild what he broke. It's been 3 years since that New Year's Eve. I live a simpler life now. No fancy cars, no luxury vacations, just peace. I invested part of the trust fund into scholarships, in my grandfather's name. Every year, students from broken families get a second chance at life. Sometimes I still visit my dad. He doesn't say much. He's quieter now. Maybe wiser, maybe just tired. We sit together in silence, two men bound by blood and by choices. That night he looked at me and said something I'll never forget. I didn't realize the real wealth I lost was your trust. And for the first time, I believed him. In life, betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it comes from the people who promise to protect you. But here's what I learned. Revenge doesn't always mean destroying someone. Sometimes the best revenge is showing them what honesty looks like. After they've forgotten it, money can buy silence but not peace. And no matter how dark the truth gets, light always finds its way through. Because in the end, truth may break you, but lies will bury you.